What you control controls you even more. It is a rather peculiar twist in the game of human existence that the moment you tighten your fingers around something, it becomes the very thing that binds you. Imagine holding water in your hands. If you clench too tightly, most of it escapes through the cracks between your fingers, leaving you strangely more thirsty than before. In the same way, when you insist on controlling life so fiercely, life slips away, and you become a servant not to freedom, but to the fear of losing what you have seized. When you try to dominate your world, you must constantly remain vigilant, constantly remain tense, constantly remain prepared for something or someone who might take it away. The act of controlling is a confession that you believe the thing you hold will leave you if your grip softens. It is a secret admission of insecurity. This is why control never leads to peace. Control leads to surveillance. It leads to internal laws. It leads to rehearsed expectations. It leads to subtle tyranny, not over others, but over yourself. Consider the body, which functions perfectly well without your conscious effort. You do not regulate the beating of your heart. You do not command the organs to begin digestion. You do not choose when to breathe next. You simply breathe. And yet all of this is happening. Now imagine trying to consciously control your breathing every moment. You would begin to suffocate beneath the weight of your own intention, and soon you would be enslaved by the very breath that once moved freely. In relationships, we see this even more clearly. When you try to hold someone, not lovingly, but possessively, they become a symbol of your fear rather than a presence of love. The more tightly you hold, the faster they slip from emotional reach. You are not dealing with people at that moment. You are wrestling with your own projections, with fantasies of ownership. You are not loving someone. You are loving an idea of them, a fixed shape. And life does not dance in fixed shapes. Control is an illusion of safety created by discomfort with uncertainty. Yet uncertainty is the essence of life. All the great rhythms of existence pulse with uncertainty. The tide rises with no guarantee it will return. Seasons shift without explanation. Birth arrives uninvited. Death arrives uninvited. Existence unfolds without your permission. The universe never filled out an application for your approval. Why then are you spending your precious time demanding that everything conform to your personal blueprint of how reality should behave? When you attempt to conquer time, you become its prisoner. The moment you insist that life should fit into your carefully measured hours and days, those hours and days begin chasing you. Suddenly you are late. Suddenly you are failing. Suddenly you are running. It is strange, is it not, that time seems to accelerate precisely when you try to catch it. Control is always accompanied by fear, and fear always travels with tension. Then people call this tension responsibility. They dress it up and present it as admirable seriousness. Yet underneath that seriousness, there is a frightened child. A child terrified of chaos, terrified of losing, terrified of dissolving into the unknown. But the unknown is simply the living moment before it becomes familiar. The moment you surrender control, life begins functioning on your behalf. You find yourself moving naturally, as though guided by currents you do not need to steer. The river does not need a captain. It has its own course. It is only when you insist upon rowing against the direction of the current that you become exhausted. Then, exhausted, you call the journey difficult, when the difficulty was of your own making. Let us look at identity. It is perhaps the most exquisite illusion humans cling to. You say, "I am this," and "I am not that." You draw boundaries around a fluid being and pretend that these boundaries are real. Yet, the harder you cling to identity, the more fragile you become. One small threat, one disagreement, and the entire structure begins to tremble. You feel insulted, attacked, misunderstood. Why? Because the identity was never stable. When you control who you think you are, your life becomes a constant maintenance project, forever under construction, forever defended. There is a peace that appears when control dissolves. It arrives silently, like the hush that comes after rain. A soft knowing that you are being lived by something much greater than your personal intentions. You breathe, you act, you speak, but none of it needs to be managed, restrained, or forced. The art is not to take your hands off existence. The art is to relax your hands so that life can move through them. That is how water remains in the palm, not through pressure, but through receptivity. What you control controls you even more. What you release becomes available to you in a completely different way. And so we enter deeper, not by explanation, but by loosening, by unclenching, by stepping back and simply watching life unfold without demanding that it obey our design. Everything alive moves through cycles of rise and fall, growth and decay. You cannot preserve a leaf in spring forever. You cannot freeze a sunset when the colours are just right. You cannot hold a moment. To hold is already to lose. This is why those who spend life trying to hold perfection never taste its sweetness. They are always busy clutching it, polishing it, reinforcing it, and missing it altogether. When you try too hard to control success, failure becomes terrifying. When failure is terrifying, you become unable to experiment. Yet life unfolds through experiment. A child falls many times before they know how to walk. If the child feared falling, they would crawl forever. So too, many adults live crawling, afraid to fall, afraid to misstep, afraid to explore. We often ask, what is the meaning of life? The very question implies that life must reveal something sealed, something predetermined, something you must search for, like a prize hidden beneath the cushions of time. But life is not a riddle to solve. It is a movement to participate in. When you relax, life carries you. When you force, life resists you. Not because it is against you, but because force contradicts your nature. You are not a separate creature sitting outside the universe trying to manipulate it. You are the universe, experiencing itself through a temporary lens called you. The more fiercely you manage your narrative, the less spontaneous it becomes. You no longer laugh freely. You laugh strategically. You no longer speak from authenticity. You speak from impression. You no longer live. You rehearse. This is the captivity of control. It binds your voice, your movement, your breath. There is a curious discovery awaiting anyone who loosens their grip. When you stop trying to shape everything, suddenly the right timing appears. The right person arrives. The right experience unfolds. Not because you summoned it, not because you deserved it, but because you stopped blocking what was already moving toward you. The universe is not stingy. It is abundant in ways beyond imagination. Yet, abundance can never be held tightly. The moment you grip abundance, it becomes scarcity. The moment you grip freedom, it becomes confinement. The moment you grip joy, it becomes anxiety. So surrender is not defeat. Surrender is participation. Surrender is alignment with the rhythm that was already here before you arrived and will continue after you depart. Death is the last invitation to release control. People fear it because death dissolves all the structures they spent a lifetime protecting. Possessions become meaningless. Titles dissolve. The reputation you defended dissolves. The awards you collected dissolve. Yet in that dissolution lies astonishing clarity. You always were something greater than everything you spent life trying to preserve. Imagine someone who tries to hold the night sky in their hands. The stars are still there, yet none are captured. Life is like that. You do not own it. You witness it. You taste it. You move in it. And then you pass it along. To live is to allow yourself to slip in and out of form without frightening yourself with its impermanence. Let your successes come and go. Let your failures come and go. Let ideas rise and fall. Let identities appear and dissolve. You are not what changes. You are the awareness in which all change dances. When you understand that what you control controls you even more, you begin laughing at the whole arrangement. A lightness enters you. You stop tightening your thoughts like bolts. You stop guarding your emotions like treasures. You simply move. And in that movement, something miraculous occurs. Life reveals itself not as something to master, but as something already perfect in its uncertainty, already complete in its impermanence, already whole in its ceaseless becoming. So sit quietly for a moment. Let your breath fall into place. Feel the sensation of existing without effort. Notice that life is taking care of itself. You are not pushing the stars across the sky. You are not instructing the trees to grow. You are not commanding the waves. You are simply here. In that simple presence, everything that once controlled you begins dissolving like smoke in open air.